The Jeep Gladiator is horrible when it comes to this. Why did they do it this way? Well, good evening everybody, and welcome back to Rob Motive JT. And that's right, the Jeep Gladiator really does let us down. It's horrible when it comes to this area. Now, let me tell you what I'm talking about. On my first Jeep Gladiator, this is my second, I had a problem. And if you watch the channel, you probably know it was with the auxiliary battery. It had to do with the stop-start system. I was getting failures. It was causing check engine lights. It was a nightmare. I even took it in and the dealership said that there was a software update and it was supposed to take care of it. Well, it took care of the check engine light, and I'm not so sure that it wasn't just a Band-Aid covering it up. In other words, when there was a system failure, it just told the system not to show the check engine light. Shortly after I had that software update done, I thought everything was golden. It was good. It wasn't. About a week after, I got another auto stop failure, or system failure, and it stated that the auxiliary battery wasn't charging or something was wrong with it. And this is a known problem, particularly early on with the 2020 Jeep Gladiator. Now, should have figured, I guess, it was the first year, it's bound to have gremlins, and unfortunately it did. So I traded that off, but before I traded off that Jeep Gladiator and got my second one, because I do love the Jeep Gladiator. Let's get that straight in the beginning. Awesome truck, one of my top 3, top 5 vehicles of all time. And I've had many. But I had a thought. I decided I was going to replace the auxiliary battery. I mean, how difficult could it be? How much could it cost? Yeah, it was under warranty, but I didn't want to screw around with the dealership. I thought I'd just do it myself. So I did a little research on the web to discover, first of all, where that auxiliary battery is. Because I looked around under the hood and I didn't see any auxiliary battery. And from what I'd seen on the web, it looked like it was fairly substantial, so it wasn't something small that I was just missing. I mean, we have the big battery, the main battery right here, right? Well, as it turns out, the auxiliary battery is actually buried. It's buried down below in this area. And if I recall, it is below the fuse panel there. Now, how do you access it? I mean, the dealer has to be able to get to it, right? If it needs to be changed. And that's the other thing. It is a battery. Sooner or later, that battery is going to have to be changed. I mean, batteries don't last forever. 3, 4, 5 years if you're lucky, maybe 7 if you got a really good battery, but they don't last forever, so it is going to have to be changed. So how do you access it? Well, it appears there's a couple of ways, and I'm not sure either one is easier than the other. The first one that I came across was to go ahead and remove the fuse panel ledge, or where all the fuses and things plug in. So you actually disconnect the batteries, pull off the cover, and then there's some bolts and things in there where you can remove the whole fuse panel. Not something I would want to screw with, right? I mean, when you start messing around with the electronics of the vehicle, you're probably going to cause other problems. So that was a definite no for me. Was definitely not going to do that. Now, the other way to do it, again, from what I had seen on the web, and everybody knows, of course, that everything is true on the internet, right? Right? So the other way that was described was to access it through the fender well down here. Now, that means you have to remove the inner fender here, this part. This needs to come out. And supposedly, I say supposedly because I never did it, the battery is right behind here, right underneath this fuse panel. So bringing it down, that would put that battery somewhere right here in that area. Now, I would question placement of it to begin with. I mean, if you go off-roading and you're going through mud puddles or stuff, or maybe even in heavy rain, obviously this is not watertight. I mean, look at this. It moves around. Obviously, water can get in behind here, and if the battery sits right back there, unless it's enclosed in some kind of a waterproof container or something, it's going to get wet. Now, with electrical systems, you don't want them to get wet, right? I mean, you don't want water all over the terminals. It'll short the battery out potentially. And maybe that's why there's a problem. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me to have a battery exposed to the elements. But irregardless, that's where it is, and let's hope that it's in some sort of a watertight enclosure or something. So those are the two areas that you can access, and I gotta say, after discovering how difficult it was and what was involved to get to the auxiliary battery, I threw in the towel. I said, forget about it, I'm not doing it. So I went back to the dealer one more time. The problem with going to the dealer is you have to have the problem while you're there, because it doesn't show up otherwise. And there is no code stored in the system that says there is an auxiliary battery failure. I mean, they can test it, whatever. So I took it in, and of course it wasn't doing it because it was intermittent. It would do it about every probably fourth, third start, something like that, maybe fifth or sixth, where I would have that problem. So it wasn't really an issue that I could show them at the dealership. There was no recall or TSB on it, so they weren't able to do anything. And, you know, while I don't agree with it, I understand it. You know, the dealership is not going to start pulling parts just because you go in and say something is wrong. Unfortunately, they need a way to verify it, and if it's not doing it at a point where you can drive right to the dealership and show them while you're standing there, then you're probably going to be out of luck, and that was the case for me. That was the driving factor, no pun intended, why I decided to trade off my first Jeep Gladiator. It had that gremlin, and there were a couple others. The check engine light I mentioned that supposedly the software update fixed, and then also a black screen on the radio, which in all honesty only happened once and seems to be a thing with Mopar radios. I had a Ram Rebel and it did the same thing. One time the whole system went dead. After a restart it was fine, and it was fine thereafter. Same thing on my wife's Jeep Wrangler. She had a black screen shortly after we bought it, and since then, and it was bought in 2018, so approaching 4 years, there haven't been any other issues with it, but just these weird little electrical things. And because of the auxiliary battery, that's why I traded off my first Jeep Gladiator. Gotta say, this one, I haven't had any problems with it so far. I've had it for quite a while now, no issues whatsoever. It is the way it should have been with my first one, who knows. Anyway, I just wanted to get on here, kind of show you guys, if you're into self-maintenance, you know, you do your own stuff. This is one I probably would leave to the shop because it's just too complicated to get to, particularly if you're going to remove that fuse panel to access it. No way would I do that. Leave a comment. Let me know if you had any problems with your auxiliary battery, and what do you think about having it at all? I'd be curious to know. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels. Rob Motive, all about my 2021 Toyota Tacoma, and Rob Motive FST, all about my 2021 Toyota Tundra. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? Don't forget to click that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. And do me a favor, smash that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.